Bereshus Harav. This Torah is Le'ilun Nishmas Baruch ben Rafal Mazeda, whose first yortzeit is on the 11th of Kislev. So may these words of Torah be as a chus for his neshama. We are told by Chazal, our rabbis, that the book of Bereshus is meant to be used as a guide to navigate us through our lives. The Ramban, Nachmanides, uses the famous phrase Maaseh Avos Siman Labanim. The stories of our forefathers act as a sign for us, their descendants. What this means practically is we're meant to delve deeply into the book of Bereshus and let it guide us through the decisions and the challenges we face in our day-to-day lives. In Parshas Vayetzei, we are shown how to deal with life challenges from our avos and our imahos, our patriarchs and our matriarchs. There is a famous question on this week's parsha asked in the Gemara Brachos, Zion Amud Beis 7b. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the great Tana and author of the Zohar, tells us that no one gave thanks to Hashem until Leah, when she had Yehuda, Judah, her fourth child. As it says in this week's parsha, Perek 29, Pasuk 35, Vatahar od v'teled ben, Vatomer hapam oide es Adonai, al kein kra shemo Yehuda, Vata'amod miledes. So what this pasuk means is, and Leah became pregnant again with her fourth child, and she bore a son and said, now I give thanks to Hashem. Therefore she called his name Yehuda, and she did not have any more children at this time. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Rashbi, uses this pasuk to teach that since the world was created, no one had thanked Hashem before this incident. This statement seems very difficult. Was Leah the first person to give thanks to Hashem? Could this be? Can we say when Noah left the ark, the Teva, and he brought offerings, he didn't thank Hashem? Is this telling us that when Sarah and Abraham gave birth to Yitzchak, they didn't thank Hashem? The Midrash even tells us that Abraham had an inn for guests, and when the guests came to pay, Abraham used to tell them, you don't have to pay me. They would ask, who then do we have to pay? He would answer, you have to pay Hashem. They would ask, how do we pay Hashem? Abraham would answer, you have to say thank you. So it's hard to understand what the Gemara is saying when it says that Leah was the first person to give thanks. Rabbi Yosef Dov Soloveitchik gives a life-changing answer to this question. He says, what's the chiddush? What was so special about the way Leah thanked Hashem? To understand this, we need to look at the names Leah gave to her first three children. She calls her first child Reuven. Why? As God has seen my affliction, and now my husband will love me. Next, Shimon, her second son, because Hashem heard that I'm hated. Third, Levi. Why was he called Levi? So now my husband will spend more time with me. The Ramban explains in Perek 29, Pasuk 30, that Leah wasn't hated. Yaakov loved Leah, but he loved Rachel more, and therefore Leah felt as if she was hated. And now, here with her fourth son, Yehuda, she says, now I'm going to give thanks to Hashem. This is a huge contrast to the names she gave to her first three children. Rav Soloveitchik explains that when she had her fourth child, she realized she was going to have more than her share. She knew there were going to be 12 tribes from 4 women, so each one could have 3. And now, after the birth of Yehuda, she had 4. So now she thanks Hashem. But still, what is the difference between her thanking Hashem here and Noach and Abraham thanking Hashem previously? Rav Soloveitchik explains this with an incredibly deep and fundamental idea in Judaism. At this point, Leah realized Yaakov would never love her the way he loved Rachel, as we have seen she had hoped for in the names of her first 3 children. When she had Yehuda, she decided, instead of focusing on the negative, on what I don't have, she decided to look at all the bracha, all the good she had in her life. So now we can answer what Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, is teaching us in the Gemara and Brachos. Leah was the first person in history to give thanks for both the good and the bad. In the story we saw with Abraham and the inn, the guests had all their needs taken care of. Their accommodation, their food, their water, so for them it was easy to say thank you. Noah was saved from a flood. How hard was it for him to say thank you? Avram and Sarah, having a child after so many years. The lesson of thanking Hashem for both the good and bad equally is so important for us as a nation, that we are called Yehudim for this very reason. As a nation, we have faced so much persecution, from the Crusades, Spanish Inquisition, pogroms, to the Nazis, Yamach Shema. As a nation, we could have been broken. During the Spanish Inquisition, getting kicked out of Spain, running to Portugal, getting kicked out of with nowhere to go, and yet we have never given up, because as Jews, as Yehudim, we realize where we are is where we're supposed to be, and that is all from Hashem. This message is echoed from a Gemara in Brachas, Samuch Amud Beis, 60b, where we learn that we're meant to make a bracha, hatova meitiv, thank Hashem for the good, and even make a Baruch Dayan Emes, a blessing on the bad. Leah gave thanks despite being disappointed, even on the bad. So often in life, especially in the last few months, things haven't gone the way we wanted, the way we had planned, from weddings to bar mitzvahs. From the holidays we all expected to go on to Italy, France, or Israel, which turned into trips to Kent, Cornwall, or the Cotswolds. In every aspect of life, we can fill in what should have been. Rather, we have to try to be thankful for what we have, and even what we don't have. As the Mishnah in Avos, Perek 4, Mishnah 1 teaches, Ezehu Ashir, who is rich? Hasameach b'chalko, one who is happy with his lot. The Magen Avos explains this means someone who graciously accepts whatever happens to them, whether good or bad. We often don't realize how great things are until we no longer have them anymore. I want to close with an incredible story. A 78-year-old man was admitted to hospital in the States in April with corona. Thankfully, it wasn't so serious, and he was put on oxygen for 24 hours. After being there for the day, he was released and given a bill of $5,000 for the oxygen he had used. The man starts weeping. His doctor, who is also a Jew, comes over to him and tells him not to worry. He assures him that medical aid will pay. He says to the doctor, "You don't understand. How many times in my life have I thanked Hashem for the oxygen I breathe? If one day of oxygen costs $5,000, then how much would a lifetime be worth? And how grateful I should be for the gift of life." So often in our lives, we only realize the bracha once it's taken away. The final verse in Tehillim, Psalm 150 says, Kol haneshama hallelujah, hallelujah. Let all the souls praise Hashem. Our Mefarshim, our commentators explain, this verse means with every breath we should praise Hashem. So we learn from Leah, we should thank Hashem for both the good and the bad. And from her great-grandson, David HaMelech, who embodied this message, as seen when he writes, Kol haneshama hallelujah, hallelujah, that we should thank Hashem for where we are now. Let us all merit the coming of Mashiach speedily in our days. Have a great Shabbos.